Hello and welcome to my channel Knitting for Everyone, where you can find basic knitting tips and tricks that will improve your knitting skills. You'll also find here some tutorials of basic clothes for kids and adults.
Now we need to read 3 rows to prepare our rib to bind off. How do we start the first row? It's very simple. So we need the knit stitch and we simply move the purl stitch from the left needle to the right, like that. Just make sure that the thread goes in front of the stitch. And again, knit stitch, the purl stitch, we just move. Knit stitch, and the purl stitch, we just move. We repeat like that the whole row. The second row will be almost the opposite. We move the knit stitch to the right needle and we do purl stitch. We move the knit stitch and do the purl stitch. Move and purl. We keep on knitting this way the whole row. The third row is absolutely the same as the first one. We do knit stitch and we move the purl stitch, leaving the thread in front of it. Knit stitch and move the purl. Knit stitch and move the purl. We finished with the 3 rows of preparation. You already can see it's a bit roundish here. And now we will bind it off. What do we need? We need a needle. We can use a needle like that. You can buy it on AliExpress or in any craft shop, I believe. So it just needs to be big enough for your thread. To bind it off, you need a thread that is about 2-3 times longer than the length of the edge of your rib. It's better if you take slightly more than less. Actually, there's 2 directions you can start binding off. You can go the same direction as we were knitting, so we just keep knitting the same. Or you can reverse it and bind it off, go to the another direction. It's just a very slight difference, and I will show you at the end the difference in between right and wrong side. But I will do the same direction as I was knitting before. Before we start, we need to check which stitch we have, the first one. So now we have the knit stitch, but we need that the first stitch was a purl stitch. That's why I just knitted, and now I have a purl stitch as the first one. I take my needle with the thread on, and let us look carefully. Now you have a first purl stitch and you go through this stitch from the front to the back. Then we put here and you have to hook the left side of the previous knit stitch. You hook it here, and you hook at the same time the next knit stitch that goes right after purl stitch. So you hook them together and you pull the thread, and then again the step number 3 you use the same back side of the purl stitch, but this time you go from the back to the front. Just tight it a little bit, it's not loose, and then you can lose these 2 stitches. So it's up to you how tight you want to have it. So this feeling you will get after a while, so you don't do it too tight but not too loose. It's basically depend on what kind of part or which part of the clothes you need right now. And let us repeat. First step, you go from the front to the back of the purl stitch. Then we hook the left side of the knit stitch, and at the same time the knit stitch that is the next after purl stitch. I hook them together, we tie them up, and then using the same back side of the first purl stitch we pull the thread from the back to the front, and we lose these 2 stitches because we are ready with them. That's how it works. Now I'm at the end of this row, and to join it you just find the previous purl stitch and also pull the thread through it. You can just make kind of a knot here.